Quick question before we start. Do you know what's actually inside the metal box sitting outside your house right now? Not the brand, not the model number, the chemical. Because whatever it is, there's a very good chance it's already scheduled for extinction, and almost nobody who installed it ever told you that. I've spent years digging through service invoices, manufacturer filings, and federal rulings on this industry. And once you line them all up side by side, a pattern jumps out that's hard to ignore. So let's walk through it together. Refrigeration chemistry has gone through roughly 4 generations in the last century. Each one was introduced as the safe, responsible upgrade over whatever came before it. Each one eventually got the same label: dangerous and due for removal. The first generation cooled homes for decades using chlorine-based compounds. Reliable, cheap to produce once the formula matured. Then researchers linked those compounds to a shrinking ozone layer, and an international agreement phased them out, starting in the late 1980s. The replacement for that generation became the backbone of home cooling for the next 30 years. Millions of units were built around it. It was inexpensive, forgiving, and easy to service. Techs loved it because a small leak was a small problem. Top it off, done. Then, right as that chemical's underlying patents aged out and cheaper generic versions started reaching the market, the ozone argument came back around for round 2, and by the early 2000s, manufacturing that gas for new equipment was banned entirely. Its replacement, the one running in most homes built between the late 1990s and just recently, never had an ozone problem. Instead, it earned a different label: a heat-trapping potential thousands of times stronger than carbon dioxide. And as of January 2025, it too was cut off from new equipment. Notice the shape of that story. It isn't one ban, it's a rotation. Roughly every 15 to 20 years, whatever chemical is currently affordable and widely manufactured gets reclassified as an emergency, and a freshly patented alternative is waiting in the wings. Here's the part most homeowners never see. A federal climate law passed in 2020 set a long runway for reducing these heat-trapping chemicals. Not an overnight ban, but a staged reduction that tightens roughly every few years, all the way out to a steep cut by the mid-2030s. That schedule is public. It's not a conspiracy theory. You can read the compliance targets yourself. What's less publicized is how neatly the corporate product cycle lines up with that regulatory calendar. The chemical companies that manufacture these refrigerants sit on the industry panels that help define acceptable replacements. They fund the research proving the old chemical is harmful, and they happen to own the patent on whatever's next. That's not illegal. It's not even necessarily malicious, like someone has to invent the next chemical, and inventing things costs money, so patents exist for a reason. But it does mean the environmental timeline and the profit timeline are moving in lockstep, and homeowners are the ones footing the transition costs every single round. If your current system develops a small leak, you might assume a technician can just add a bit more gas and send you on your way. With the newer generation of refrigerants, that's often no longer true, and the reason is genuinely technical, not just a sales tactic. The current replacement chemicals aren't single compounds. They're blends, mixtures of 2 or 3 different molecules tuned to hit a specific performance and safety target. When a blend leaks, the different components don't escape at the same rate. The mixture that's left behind in your system is no longer the same recipe it started as. A technician can't simply add more because the ratio inside your unit has already shifted. The only clean fix is to fully recover whatever remains and recharge the entire system from scratch. More labor, more material, more cost every time. There's also a pressure and lubrication issue. Older systems ran fairly low internal pressure with a simple mineral-based oil. The newer chemical families typically operate at meaningfully higher pressure and require a synthetic lubricant that readily absorbs moisture from the surrounding air. Trapped moisture reacting with refrigerant under heat and pressure produces mild acids inside the system. Acids that slowly attack copper lines and compressor windings from the inside. It's a slower failure mode, but a real one, and it's part of why older, simpler systems earned a reputation for outlasting their replacements. For most of the industry's modern history, the official line on flammable refrigerants in homes was simple: absolutely not, too risky, not happening. Then, within about a decade, the newest approved generation of residential refrigerants arrived, carrying an official safety classification of mildly flammable. To be fair to the industry, the actual flammability risk is low and heavily engineered around leak sensors, spark-resistant electrical components, revised installation procedures. Manufacturers aren't lying about the safety features, but it's worth sitting with the fact that the chemicals with the best environmental profile at low production cost tend to also be the ones nobody wanted to touch a decade ago, and the ones that finally got approved happen to be the ones tied to lucrative new patents. Those new safety requirements aren't free either. Leak detection hardware, redesigned electrical components, and new technician certifications all get built into the sticker price of your next system, typically pushing costs up somewhere in the range of 5 to 15% over the previous generation, according to industry estimates. Let's say your current system needs a refrigerant charge because of a small leak. Depending on the size of your home and current pricing, that repair typically lands somewhere between $400 and $1,500. A full system replacement, by contrast, commonly runs anywhere from $6,000 to well over $10,000 once labor, ductwork adjustments, and the new equipment are factored in. If a technician tells you your system can't be serviced anymore because the refrigerant is being phased out, ask a direct follow-up question. Is servicing illegal, or is it just getting more expensive? Those are two very different things, and the answer matters. In almost every case with the current generation of home cooling systems, servicing existing units remains completely legal. The manufacturing ban applies to new equipment, not to keeping your current unit running. So here's the practical takeaway, stripped of the drama. First, walk outside and read the data plate on your outdoor unit. Know exactly which refrigerant your system uses before anyone starts talking to you about phase-outs. Second, remember that a manufacturing ban on new equipment is not the same thing as your system becoming illegal or unfixable. Existing units can keep running and keep getting serviced for a long time after that cutoff date. Third, if your system needs a recharge every single season, that's not normal wear. That's an unrepaired leak, and someone's choosing not to find it. A sealed refrigeration loop should hold its charge for the entire working life of the equipment. Insist on a leak search before you agree to repeated top-offs. Fourth, when it genuinely is time to replace your system, ask installers directly which refrigerant family the new unit uses and why they chose it. Get that answer in writing and get more than one quote. If every contractor you call says the same unit needs full replacement, that's useful information. If even one says otherwise, that tells you something too. None of this means the environmental case for phasing out high-impact chemicals is fake. Reducing heat-trapping emissions is a legitimate goal, and some of these transitions genuinely do less damage to the atmosphere than what came before. But it's fair to notice that every single time one of these chemicals loses its patent protection and gets cheap to produce, a new environmental justification appears right on schedule with a fresh patent already filed and ready to go. Maybe that's coincidence, repeated 4 times in a row over 90 years. Or maybe the smartest thing you can do the next time someone tells you your perfectly good system is suddenly obsolete is ask one simple question. Who exactly owns the patent on whatever they're trying to sell you next? That's the question worth asking before you ever ask what it costs.